Hey everyone, Dr. Jason Dean, Revolution Network, giving a little bit of bonus material because in my research, even on my off days, I'm trying to educate everyone and I stumble across sometimes data, information, videos, training, you name it, and I have to pick it apart. So what I'm going to show you here is a narration. The clip is about 7.5 minutes, but with my narration and everything else, it's going to go a little longer. So I hope you enjoy this. This is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation dealing with Africa, genetically modified seeds, agriculture, farming, and basically holding down the African population. And I'm going to show you how they do it on stage, how they talk around themselves, and you can literally listen. And then also, there's vaccine information in here that you're not going to want to miss. So let's go to the videotape. All right, guys, Dr. Jason Dean, Revolution Network. I'm coming to you with some bonus material. I'm going to take you through about a 7.5 minute video clip of Melinda and Bill Gates talking in a Brussels seminar. And I'm going to narrate along as we go and kind of, point out some things that are some very alarming, some are misinformation, and kind of give you my take on what's going on when I found this video clip. So let's go to the actual clip itself. All right, here we go. I'm gonna do my best not to jump in too many times because there's so many glaring out points that it's pretty ridiculous. And we know the hidden intentions behind Bill and Melinda Gates and their foundation. So here we go.
One other area that you look at is agriculture. And it seems to be one area you're talking about is improving the efficiency of the supply chain. Another, which I guess would be more controversial here in Europe in particular, is the role that GMOs and modification and creating purpose-built seeds that will deal with the particular problems of the developing world.
Okay, so they're diving right into agriculture and genetically modified organisms. I believe Melinda starts this, and I'm going to go through and again narrate what she's saying in the outpoints.
Role that can play.
We think you need to have both types of seeds, natural seeds and also GMOs. But we think ultimately it's up to the African.
Now I want to show something right away. She first says, which I don't know if it was a mistake or not, and I'll even play this over for you again. She says we need both GMO and regular seeds. And then when I play this over again, watch Bill's face within seconds after she says it. He's clearly not in agreement because he wants all GMOs. So let me back that up real quick and show you what she says.
Both types of seeds, natural seeds and also GMOs. But we think ultimately it's up to the Africans to decide.
No, he says.
Seeds have to be adapted to their climate. They have to grow.
Now she talks about adapting the seeds to the climate. Well, Africans have been growing things for probably at least thousands, if not millions of years going back into time. Why do we all of a sudden need to adapt now? Oh, maybe because they're giving them droughts because they destroyed their land. But let's keep going.
Grow them in test labs, which they're doing, and in test beds. But they ultimately have to decide what's right for their country and their market.
Exactly. So Bill and Melinda, if they need to decide what's right for their market, why are you guys butting your heads in?
If you look at any country that's moved from a low to middle income country, they got their agriculture sector right. 7 out of 10 adults in Africa are farmers, and they primarily farm plots that are around an acre, 2 hectares. And so they need to have seeds that they know can survive in the climate. You all were talking about climate change earlier. As it comes...
Again, their seeds already survived in the climate, but they destroyed their climate. That's one of the reasons they're having problems. She's going to go deeper into that.
To Africa, it's going to disproportionately affect the poor. And so having a drought-resistant maize, which is a GMO,
Why would we need a drought-resistant maize, which is genetically modified, because they're altering their weather and they're creating droughts in Africa because they've destroyed the land. They've taken the animals off the African land, which if you've heard my show before, I talked about Alan Savory talking about killing 30,000 elephants in Africa, which was one of the biggest mistakes and regrets of his life, he says. So they're taking animals off the land and wondering why the land is struggling so much. And now they're trying to build a seed, genetically modified maize, to handle the drought, which the drought would go away if you stopped altering the weather and put the animals back on the ground and regenerated its soil. And she's going to go into regenerative soil here in a little bit.
An African farmer, male or female, can get 20 to 30% additional yield off of their farm. We think it's up to Kenya and Tanzania and South Africa to decide, is that right for their economy? And is that the way they want to feed people in their own country? Of our investments, of our...
She keeps saying, is it right for their economy? Do they believe, do the Africans believe it's right for their economy? Then why are we talking to Bill and Melinda Gates? Allow the Africans to create their own economy and stop ruining their land, stop putting them into more slavery, stop stealing their diamonds in the South Africa area, stop stealing their vegetables, their seeds, their sustainable growth themselves that they've had for a long time before this. Neocolonialism, which is the new, not the old founding fathers America, the way it should be, but the Bill Gates, the Monsantos of the world have destroyed Africa.
Of all the investments we make in agriculture, and we make about $400 million in the sector, less than 5% of them are in the GMO technology, but we do believe it's something that ought to be available. One of the natural technologies is rice, a rice that is not GMO, that can be flood resistant, that is sit in a field. When the rains come in Africa, a lot of rice is also grown in Africa. When the rains come, they're coming longer and for deeper periods, and so having a rice that's more flood resistant and can sit there in water for 2 or 3 weeks is also incredibly important. But we think that the Africans...
So they have rice that can sit in water for 2 weeks at a time, and now this is twofold. It's not genetically modified, which means it actually works. But twofold, I said, is the fact that if you actually didn't destroy the land, the actual soil and dirt of Africa, the water wouldn't be sitting for 2 weeks at a time, because with regenerative farming, regenerative land use, the water is actually soaked into the land, and you wouldn't actually have flooding in certain areas. So again, this goes back to they're actually destroying the land by trying to change or affect global warming. And now they have a problem because they've altered the land, and now they're trying to fix the problem of altering the land, which you can't do because they're going against nature.
Ought to get to decide which crops they grow in,
now,
which ways.
There's an interesting picture here. Wherever they are at this Brussels conference, these folks, no matter how smart they are completely brainwashed. This is the problem. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Bill and Melinda Gates, have been propped up like gods by the science community. So now all of these folks, whether they're dignitaries from countries, wherever they are, whether they're just salespeople from Monsanto or anything else, they are following the Gates like they're gods. And this is the problem. And now these people are going to go take this back to where they're from and say that this is what we must follow.
Which seeds?
The strongest analogy is to medicines. And, is there something to worry about with medicines?
Yes, there is.
Might some of them have side effects?
All medications have side effects. What he's saying here, now Bill talks for a little bit, and when he talks, I actually think he might be clinically insane. Because first of all, he double talks, he goes back on what he says, and he's going to say a morbidly profound thing here in a couple seconds. I want to stop it before we get to that, because his first point is, do medicines have side effects? Of course they do, because medicines, the very nature of medications, bypass the physiology of the body, so they must have side effects. They're not natural. Natural doesn't have side effects. Every medication has a side effect. But here we go. He's going to talk about genetic modified vaccines injecting into kids. Get ready for this, because he laughs, he smiles. Watch his face right before he says it.
Do we need safety testing? And we're taking things that are, genetically modified organisms, and we're injecting them in little kids' arms. We just shoot them right into the vein.
Look how he's saying that, and he's smiling about it. This is the Bill Gates everyone knows is dangerous, and he's even saying it's not safety tested. This is back in 2015, or this is when it was posted. It was probably before that, obviously, maybe a year or two, maybe it was 2015. But he's admitting that it's going to do damage.
So, yeah, I think maybe we should have a safety system where we, do trials and test things out.
Maybe we should, yeah.
The idea, though, that you would...
It's insane not to have a safety system, and he's joking about it. He's joking about putting GMO vaccines into African and American kids.
A technique that promises to solve nutrition problems, solves productivity problems, solves crop disease problems for African farmers, where it's absolutely a life and death issue for them. And you would
They only have crop disease problems because they've messed with the land.
say, oh, nothing that uses that technique should possibly use. And it's so random, what's considered in GMO and what's not considered GMO, irradiating things and having multiple chromosomes, that's not GMO. Whereas things where you intentionally insert in things in a very careful known way, that is GMO.
That tells me he's actually kind of stupid, because irradiating, which is also harmful, he says is not GMO. Well, it's actually mutation. It's not genetically modified. Genetically modified means literally going in and splicing in other DNA, RNA, and actually changing the source code of what you're altering. All right? Radiation is mutation because it actually destroys the DNA itself. Two very different things, and he's trying to make a joke about how they should be essentially similar.
And in fact, you can't even tell once you have the results, the idea of how it was derived. There's no natural breeding can create exactly those same things. So I do think the Africans ought to have a sovereign right. Take cassava disease. It's spreading throughout the continent.
I'm shocked that he said that. Cassava disease, by the way, he's going to talk about mosaic disease, which is actually a virus, which they probably altered everything and made this virus go out of control.
And it's a very important crop. There is, in the labs being worked on, a GMO cassava that will stop mosaic disease. And should African countries be told...
The virus of the mosaic disease is going out of control because they altered it in the first place, and now they're trying to alter it to fix mosaic disease. They're literally going back and forth on the problem, and they're actually too stupid to realize what they did in the first place.
No, let that disease run rampant. It's okay. It creates starvation and malnutrition.
So they should have the right to export those crops to Europe.
No, every country should be able to decide if they don't want to eat stuff. If they want to pay more for...
So they should be able to decide if they don't want to eat something, but they shouldn't be able to decide if they want a vaccine or not. These two literally talk around themselves. I don't know. I'm beginning to think that she is his handler, because she's like lost. Look at her face. She's totally lost. She's not even really listening. She's staring off into Neverland, and he's going to go deeper into this.
Food. If they want to use more insecticide, it's okay.
It's okay.
They can do whatever they want when it comes to food. Pay twice as much, 4 times as much. It's okay.
He's being sarcastic and actually making him look bad. He's saying, yeah, they can pay more, or they can use our services and our products and pay less.
Hey, don't eat butter. Whatever feels good. It's okay.
It sounds to me like you question the benefits of trade and agriculture, which I would have thought is a huge part.
No, it's better for the world if people have sort of the same view of the merits of things and allow free trade. But at the end of...
So it's better for the world to have free trade, which again, he's talking around himself, because free trade actually works in a system where you have nationalism, because you can trade back and forth via contracts like we're starting to do. He's talking about globalism, which he wants a one global order, one global planet. So he goes deeper into this again.
At the end of the day, there's always personal preference and choice in terms of what people choose to buy. The big deal here is that Africa has a huge problem, and
the huge problem is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
It's not that interesting to argue this thing in the abstract. It's as these new products come along, then will people try to say to Africa, no, that isn't the kind of thing you should. Vitamins in your food? Are you kidding?
He's such a narcissistic ass. That's the best I can say.
It's an irony that a country, the United States, which has less than 2% of people farming, exports food to...
We have less than 2% people farming in the U.S. because we've allowed the globalists like him to destroy our farms via forcing genetically modified seeds on the farmers and then suing them if they try to keep their own seeds and take them on via generation.
A continent that has 70% of its adults doing farming. So they, as a whole, are spending net $50 billion a year buying food from from other countries. And the prediction is, of course, there'll be trade, but that on net, their comparative advantage will be such in terms of increasing their productivity and how much of their labor they have employed there, that they will be a net exporter.
He actually makes a really good argument for nationalism and not globalism. He doesn't even realize he's doing it.
And that comes from where, though? I mean, you said only a small part of what you spend on, for example, is GMO stuff. So where are these great gains in agricultural productivity going to come from?
Well, increasingly, the better seeds will use advanced scientific techniques, but there's a lot of good seeds that were done with conventional techniques that still aren't being used in Africa. If all you did was solve farmer...
He keeps talking about scientific techniques and seeds. Well, guess what? Seeds at the origin were a creation of God, creator, universe, and they are genetically they are of the belief that they must genetically change and alter seeds for population growth, which is literally a complete lie, and it's not even a logical theory.
Credit so that they could get enough fertilizer, which has a net payback.
He talks about fertilizer there real quick. He's going to go into more. And the crazy thing about fertilizer is if you are using regenerative farming techniques, you don't actually have to have fertilizer. So they're trying to push fertilizers, which will become toxic, destroy the soil will run off into the waters, and it will pollute everything, and the fertilizers will actually do more damage.
And the only reason they don't is they don't have the education and the credit to get it. We're talking about a factor of 5 difference in productivity for the acreage that's being used, and Africa has a lot of acreage that's appropriate to use for farming that's not being used. So they have to overcome the population increase.
They have to, again, with the population increase. Again, Bill Gates talking about they have to overcome their population increase. Africa is a massive continent. They have far more than enough room to grow all the food for themselves and probably the planet. But the problem is neocolonialism, the Gates Foundations, the globalists, the elite have destroyed Africa, and now they're trying to... So they gave them a problem, they got a reaction, now they're trying to give them a solution, which is globalists.
The more difficult weather, and they need more gross calories, and they need more diversified...
They do not need more gross calories, they need more actual nutrition. Calories are not the same as nutrition, calories are not the same as nutrient-dense foods, calories are not the same as vitamins, and calories are not the same as minerals. He actually doesn't know anything about nutrition.
Calories to deal with their malnutrition. But because of the opportunity to raise productivity, they'll be able to take all those factors and get to the point where they are a net exporter.
And it's not just seeds. I mean, we talk about in the letter, it's seeds, it's fertilizer, it's planting techniques, it's knowing how to do no-till farming.
The Africans have known how to plant it's in their DNA. We don't need to go tell them and explain to them. The problem is we destroyed so many of them that maybe they forgot what their ancestors passed down to them. We do not need the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation teaching the Africans about tilling and soil technique. We need to actually allow them to tap back into their ancestors.
How to rotate your crops so you don't destroy the soil.
Which they're doing. So they're teaching Africans how to rotate crops properly. But yet over here in America, they make sure we're monocropping, which does destroy the soil. They talk around themselves all the time.
And also access to market. Access to market is huge for people. And even we talked about mobile phones earlier. Having the price at market is huge for a farmer, because then they know when they send it with the middleman on a donkey or a bicycle or a motorcycle, whether they're getting a fair price for their cassava or their corn at market. So all of those pieces have to come together, and the transport system. I mean, part of what you see even in some countries like Tanzania, they're just not transporting from north to south very well, even in places where they've got surplus and other places where they've got huge demand.
They are going after the entire supply chain. They are going after every single aspect, from soil to seed to end product to cash to transaction. They want control of the entire system. That is a problem. Okay, so now that you've seen that, I hope the narration wasn't too annoying, and I hope I didn't step in too many times, but I had to point out some very specific situations. And now you've seen how they talk about this stuff, not behind closed doors, but in relatively closed door seminars where they're going over vaccinations, and Bill Gates laughing, talking about injecting GMOs into the bloodstreams of children, depopulation again. And then Melinda, I actually think Melinda might be a handler for Bill Gates, because Bill sometimes doesn't act like he's all there. She sounds like she actually spoke more than him in that segment. And so I really keep an eye on this stuff. But I want you to see how they caused the problem. They got the reaction. Now an African continent is struggling, and now they're providing the solution. The same thing they're doing here in America, yet it's double talk all the way, and it's destruction of a planet, destruction of an amazing population, and it's stuff that we need to share. We need to educate everyone about out there. So do me a favor, please push this out there as much as you can. Go subscribe. Go follow on Facebook, by the way, on my profile. Go subscribe on YouTube, and the little bell on the side, notification when I do go live or when I drop videos like this. Go listen to the podcast so we can go change America. Dr. Jason Dean, Revolution Network, signing off. Have an amazing day.